Kingsman, The Golden Circle is the much anticipated sequel to the very much enjoyed, yet surprisingly enjoyed as much as it was, Kingsman: The Secret Service. Now, Kingsman: The Secret Service came out just a little before I was ever doing YouTube videos, so I never made a spoiler talk for that. But I do remember going into Kingsman: The Secret Service, I was wondering to myself, how good is this movie going to be? I mean, I saw the trailer for it, and I was like, this looks like it'll be a fun movie, but probably not much more than that. Turns out though, Kingsman: The Secret Service is actually a really fucking awesome movie. The cast work great together, the characters are very memorable, very awesome, the action sequences are great, so much fun. This really did become a modern day James Bond movie. So because of that, I went into Kingsman: The Golden Circle, really excited for it, really interested to see where else this world could go. So getting right into it, this movie takes place about a year after the events of the last movie happened. Eggsy is still a Kingsman, he's still one of the top agents in that field. He's currently in a relationship with Princess Tildy. But in the very beginning of the movie, what happens is the Kingsman headquarters and all of the Kingsmen, with the exception of Eggsy and Merlin, are all killed, wiped out by a missile attack sent by this terrorist organization known only as the Golden Circle, which really surprised me right out the gate. I was not expecting to see the Kingsman organization get destroyed the way it was. Certainly not right out the gate anyway, so I was already at least very interested in the direction this movie was going. Eggsy and Merlin soon realized that they need to go to the United States of America to work with the Statesmen, which is, you know, America's version of the Kingsmen, which is something I really loved right out the gate because it showed that there is an entire world of secret organizations happening. And I loved how the Statesmen were, you know, similar to the Kingsmen. You know, the Kingsmen are posing as tailors, and the Statesmen are posing as a bourbon distillery. I like how Statesmen, just like the Kingsmen, have their own form of weaponry, such as electric whips and chains and these really cool pistols that they have. They really feel like modern day badass cowboys. Well, actually, cowboys are still around nowadays. You know what I mean, like really badass super secret spy cowboys. There we go. Two of these statesmen are played by Channing Tatum and Halle Berry. And, you know, Channing Tatum's kind of like Eggsy, like he's one who goes on the missions, you know, is armed with the weaponry, goes and takes charge of whatever needs to be done. And then Halle Berry is kind of like Merlin, you know, she stands back, she, you know, controls the mission, she watches everything, she develops the weaponry and things like that. It was cool to see that, but what we also soon see is the Statesmen have found Harry, you know, Colin Firth's character from the last movie, and before he died, they showed up and they used this cure, this antidote, whatever it was. After he got shot in the head, they were able to force these kind of microbots into his brain, you know, reconfigure its structure, you know, fix his brain, cure him, albeit at the cost of his eye, but because it was still a headshot, Harry's now dealing with amnesia. He has no idea who he is. And that was something I like to see, because when I found out that Colin Firth was gonna be back in this movie, I was like, oh man, you better have a good reason to bring him back, because he looked pretty fucking dead in the last movie. But no, the way they were able to save his life was very unique, very interesting, and I like that he starts out having amnesia, so Eggsy is trying to bring him back. He's trying to regain his mentor. I love how Eggsy does eventually bring Harry back. You know, he brings him this Yorkie puppy that resembles his old dog, Mr. Pickles, from the last movie. Then he hands Harry a gun, says, shoot the dog, like you told me to shoot my dog in training. And you know, all of that finally clicks with Harry, and he remembers, oh my gosh, this was what I had to do as a Kingsman. I'm a Kingsman. You're a Kingsman. I remember everything now. So now the gang's all back together and they can find out who the Golden Circle is. In the meantime, finally getting to who the Golden Circle is, it is indeed this terrorist organization that is run by Julianne Moore. She is the head of the largest drug cartel in the world. She ordered that hit on the Kingsmen, so you know, the only real service that could stop her was taken out. With the help from Charlie, who was that Kingsman that was on the track and spilled the beans about everything, so he was, you know, released as a Kingsman, turned into even more of a dick, and now he works for her. Probably because she gave him a really badass metal arm. But anyways, Julianne Moore eventually reveals to the President of the United States that she has laced every drug that can be made available to anyone with a toxin that immediately gives them the symptoms of rashes, and then eventually kills them. Then she goes on to offer the president, like, I will release an antidote that will cure everyone who is suffering from this if and only if you end the war on drugs and my organization is granted immunity. Because this way, you know, she can continue to sell drugs to whoever she wants and she's gonna make a shit ton of money from it, even more so than she already has, because there's not a war on it anymore. But what interested me right here is the President of the United States was like, no, I'm not gonna allow her to do that. And you know, his colleagues are like, but that means a bunch of people are gonna die. And he's like, good. That means the war on drugs will be ended. All these drug users, they'll all be dead, they'll all be gone, and guess what? I'll be able to bring her in, so now the war on drugs and people who use drugs, it's all finished. And you know, his colleagues are just in, you know, disgust, they're in awe of him. It's like, you're gonna let all these innocent people die? And in his eyes, they're like, they're not innocent, they're drug users. It's like, holy shit, you think Donald Trump's a dick? Take a look at this president. So yeah, now the Kingsmen and the Statesmen, they know what the plan is. So now it's up to Eggsy, Harry, and the Statesman who goes by the codename Whiskey to go after the Golden Circle and get the antidote. Because Channing Tatum can't go because he's suffering from the symptoms because, I don't know, he's apparently taking some kind of drug. And from here is where the movie did offer things that I like, but also things I didn't like. We see more of what the Statesman weaponry is. We see more of what they're capable of as fighters, which is really cool to see. The action scenes are still a lot of fun, but what the movie does here is it uses a lot of the action scenes, the style of the action scenes anyway, from the previous movie, and puts them in this movie. Like, you know the bar scene in the first one where Harry does the whole manners maketh man. Are we going to sit around all day, or are we going to fight? And then you get a really badass fight scene between him and those thugs. Yeah, the exact same thing happens here, just with the Statesmen. And the way in the first one, how we really had that big, awesome church fight between Colin Firth and, you know, the people that were being corrupted by Samuel L. Jackson. The action scenes in this movie, they're used very similar to that. You know, the style anyway. And when you see that happening again, it has us sitting there like, this is cool, but we have seen it before. This movie definitely suffered from sequelitis, and I definitely can't ignore that. I do like seeing how personal this mission is for Eggsy in the fact that Princess Tildy is now suffering from these symptoms, and he knows he has to get this antidote quickly or she's gonna die. So now when they get to Julianne Moore's hideout, it turns out that Merlin has accidentally stepped on a landmine where if he takes his foot off it, it's gonna blow up. And he nobly tells Harry and Eggsy, just go after them. I'm gonna get the guards to come after me. I'll take them out. They'll take me out too, but it's what we do as Kingsmen. So yeah, Merlin does die from taking out a bunch of guys to keep the mission going, but it was really badass to see from him. So now after Eggsy kicks Charlie's ass using his robotic arm against him, and after Harry destroys Julianne Moore's robot guard dogs with the help from Elton John, yeah, he makes a cameo in this movie. That was pretty cool. The two of them confront Julianne Moore. They inject her with her own toxin, which is now causing her to die, which forces her to give up the password that's going to release the antidote. But luckily, they gave the bitch an extra dose of the toxin, so now she just dies almost immediately. However, before they can release the antidote, Whiskey comes back and confronts them, has them at gunpoint. He wants the toxins to still be released. He wants these drug users to die. Yeah, Harry had suspicions about him throughout this mission. He thought he was against them the whole time. Turns out he was right. But even here, Whiskey does tell them the reason he's got it out for drug users is because his wife and his unborn son were murdered by drug users. So he's got a bit of a grudge against people who do drugs. Thankfully though, because Eggsy and Harry are both a couple badass kinsmen, they're able to defeat him. They release the antidote to the world. Everybody's saved. With that, the president is impeached. The statesmen agree to move to Scotland to help rebuild the Kingsman organization, and Halle Berry is giving Whiskey's place in the Statesmen. And then the movie ends with Eggsy and Tildy getting married like he promised her he would. So all in all, I will say, Kingsman the Golden Circle was a fun movie. Taron Egerton, once again, he kills it in this movie. I really like seeing him as the title character of these Kingsman movies. I definitely think he's found his stride here. It was good to see Colin Firth back. I'm glad he wasn't shoehorned into this movie. I'm glad he played the role that he did. Julianne Moore was a great villain. I loved that they expanded on the world in these Kingsman movies and showing that the United States have their own form of Kingsmen known as statesmen. The tools, the gadgets, the weaponry, that's all really cool to see. The action scenes are still a lot of fun. Like I said, my only gripe is this movie lacks the surprise and the originality that the first one had. When you see some of these things that made the first one as great as it was, you see it again, you're just like, this is good, but it's not as original as I'd liked it to be. But in the end, although this movie didn't have the same impact as the first one did, I still think it's a movie that anyone can go and have a really fun time with. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe. I will see you all next time.